I'd like to welcome you to Reach the World Next Door. We are going to be talking about how to reach out to refugees in particular, but probably getting into areas of immigrants and international students as well. So we are right now, this is no longer just a kit that can be used in a church, but we've just started a training center in Houston, Texas. So they are coming from around the country, around the United States, and 2 from Taiwan. Some of them are refugees from Burma. Some of them, one of them was a refugee from Burundi. And so we are really having a special time. We've been together just 3 weeks, so everything is brand new. But the purpose of it is to train missionaries by doing missions. So we're going out with refugees.
These guys, have they gone to a U.S. missionary school or so forth or anything like that?
No, I think pretty much this is new for them. So we're there in Texas, just outside of the city on the edge. God's given us a special place. And so we'll be out doing work Sundays, Thursdays, and Sabbaths in outreach. And then the other days, more of a classroom, but also vocational training. So just anything you can think of that you might need to know to be a missionary, we're spending time doing that. A few cabins and little houses there that God has blessed us with. And church members across Houston have been coming and getting involved. And our hope is to, in turn, train them back so that across that huge metro area of 7 million, they'll be able to reach out. Well, by 2030, that's what Phoenix is supposed to be at. It's about 7 million. Just this huge growth that continues to take place here. And part of that is refugees, a lot that have been coming. You have 74,000, and we'll get into that. But I don't need to tell you too much about what's happening there, but between the snakes, the spiders, the mosquitoes, and the humidity, we have a little extra training. So enjoy your dry heat here in Phoenix. What happened just recently with the hurricane has opened up a door for us to be able to minister. And I think that is probably such a huge lesson to all of us, is that when people are facing crisis or chaos, that is a sad, awful thing, but it also is often the open door for the Holy Spirit to be able to touch their lives and be able to care for them. Yes, Dan?
Houston, it wasn't just poor people, very well off people.
Yes, absolutely. There are so many that have lost everything they have in the hurricane that was happening there, as well as in Florida too. So we just walked down the streets. There's a Cambodian community, and began to reach out and care for the people that were there. Welcome. Come on in. And the doors just opened to talk to people as we cared for just little things. This man's house that we were in there, the drywall was ripped out from the bottom to about 3 feet up, and we were pulling out wet insulation from behind washers and dryers, and able to just see God work and move. This house was so bad that it needed to be just, I think, bulldozed over. Black mold on all the walls, and our job was to take that off so they could see the structure if it was worth fixing. But you can imagine, these are Cambodians who've been through the war, Khmer Rouge, 2 to 3 million people in the genocide destroyed. And then they've come to America, have made a life, built up even their own little community with growing their greens and selling them in the city and different things. And then to have this just come apart. As we reached out to this man, he at first, when I walked up, I said, "Are you seriously still living here?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "You need to get out. This is very, very unhealthy for you." And he said, "It's okay. I'm going to die soon anyway." So what are you talking about? He said, "Yeah, I'm 60. I'll be 70 soon, and so what?" He was just so discouraged. And the Taiwanese girl, who doesn't speak a lot of English super well, she began to just befriend him and talk to him. Pretty soon he opened up and shared his whole story of how he was married during the time of the Khmer Rouge, and his wife was killed, separated from him, never saw her again. Then in the refugee camps, he married another lady who got pregnant and had a baby, and as she stepped outside the camp, she stepped on a landmine and was killed along with the baby. So he's just starting to open this up to us who are strangers. And then he walked over to his car, the only thing really that didn't get destroyed by the flood, and opened the door, reached in, and he said, so you can imagine I didn't want to get married ever again. But this lady found me, and she wanted me, and he showed me the picture of his wife. And I was taken back because just the day before, as we had gone through this area, I'd been sitting down, joking and talking around the medical table, because I speak Cambodian from our church planting times in the country there. And then I walked over to the bathroom, and as I came out, one of the ladies who'd been talking and laughing at the table stopped me and just seriously began pouring out her story of how badly her house had been messed up. And I had tried to tell her the best I could about the Creator God and how He is able to help people. And she smiled and said, welcome. She smiled and said, I know about God. I used to go to church. So I stopped and we prayed together and encouraged her the best I could. And then to find out the next day her house was the one we were working on. Just could see God wanting to care. And tomorrow our group of young people will be back in that Cambodian community, helping them recover from the hurricane. And it just reminded me so fresh how people who have been through incredible heartaches overseas, have gone through war, have seen their houses, their families killed, their houses burned down, and then maybe have spent 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, some even 20 years in a refugee camp, and then finally get to come. Excited, a place of safety, opportunities for their children, thrilled to be in the United States, and then they realize what an incredible, difficult world it's going to be for them. I think of the man who I heard talk right after I preached this morning at the Rwandan Congolese group there. They said he may be 100 years old. They're not sure how old he is. But he came up and wanted to share his testimony. The other day he got up. He lives on his own, has a little apartment. There's caseworkers that check on him. But he decided to take a walk. And he kept walking and walking until he got lost and couldn't find his way home. So he was so confused, didn't know where to go, could not speak English. So he walked until he found a bridge, and he laid down and he slept through the night. He stayed out 4 or 5 days, all week long, just walking around, trying to figure out what to do and how to get home. And finally, somebody saw him there and offered him some water and tried to talk with him. And he said, no English, no English. And he emphasized that up front there as he was telling his story in Kinyarwanda. And finally someone said to him, do you speak Swahili? Yes, I speak Swahili. And he began to talk with them. And then they called the police and had them come and began to try to find a way to connect him back home. And they finally asked him, do you know your caseworker's name? He said, well, there's one, and then he named off another 10 or so. And finally they were able to track down Juan and find his way home. But that desperate sense of, I can't speak the language, I don't know where I'm going, that's for an almost 100-year-old man. But it's really not too far from what many of the refugees feel as they come to America and are trying to find their way, figuring out the ATM machine, trying to use the dishwasher or even wonder what it's there for. Walking into a grocery store, a Walmart, and being absolutely overwhelmed by the choices that are there. So this is the life of refugees. So happy, so glad to be there. I've just moved past this part. We really need to be wrestling with this as a church in a huge way. We have now 65.6 million people that are displaced. That's a lot of people. That's the size of the country of Thailand, where we lived for 10 years working with the church, with the Global Mission Buddhist Study Center. But that number is not just a bunch of numbers, it's people like this little boy reaching out to try to comfort his father, who is just beside himself with what has happened. This number has doubled in the last 20 years. The time from my little 1-year-old boy to now age 21, while I've been living my life, the world has been breaking up more and more until we have that many people who are not able to live in their home. Of that number, there's 22.5 million refugees. How is that different from displaced? It means you fled your country for persecution or war. You're not able to be at home ever, probably again. You're on your way, headed somewhere. So of the displaced people, that means 1 in 113. Let's walk down the church on Sabbath and realize that one of those people, if it's a 100-member church or so, is somewhere sleeping, not in their bed, not using their kitchen, not able to be with their neighbors or maybe even with their family. So count to 60 in a minute's time, and there's 20 more people that have had to flee to go somewhere. Half of those are children under the age of 18. So that just opens my mind. There's a little video clip, I wish I had it for you, but online you can probably find it, that shows as if California became the place of war and people began to try to flee across the border into Mexico. And it just turns things around in your mind to recognize how you would feel if it's your little child that got separated from you. And in fact, that is the situation for 75,000 children whose parents may be killed or just separated from them. And they're alone waiting for somebody to open their heart, to open their home. As I talked with the pastor this morning over there, Pastor Joel, I asked him, how many children do you have? And he smiled and he said, I have 6. I said, wow, that's a lot. He said, well, 2 of them are not my own. 2 are orphans that I just brought into my home. A man with 4 children of his own. Busy, busy pastor who just recognizes, I have to do this. There are children in desperate need. And it's amazing, the government will pay you to foster refugee children, to take them into your home, and they will be as if you've adopted. You know, people spend thousands of dollars to adopt children, and here about all you have to pay for is getting a notarized signature as you go through the application process. So it may not be you, but it may be someone you know. As I've shared this possibility with church members throughout Houston, every time someone will come up and say, please help me know how I can do that. I want to take them into my home. Isn't this what Jesus said when he told us in Isaiah 58, is it not to bring the poor that you find who are cast out into your homes? Such a privilege that we have. So where are they coming from? Where are the refugees primarily fleeing from? This doesn't mean this many are coming to America, not by a long shot, but this is where they are, some 5 million having fled Syria. Greatest humanitarian tragedy of our times. Afghanistan, over 2 million. South Sudan, over 1 million. Somalia, right there too, and then the others under 1 million. Sudan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Central African Republic, Myanmar, Eritrea, Burundi. Those are the top ones. And many of those have come to Phoenix. Of the refugees, half in general are from Syria, Afghanistan, and South Sudan. So what's going on here? I see it definitely, of course, as the attack of the enemy and just the natural outbreak of the human heart as the world gets worse and worse. But I also believe that God has his hands in it, that he is using it for his glory. The Bible tells us in Acts 17 that their times and their boundaries is ordained by the Lord. And so I believe that he has allowed the fruit of evil to bear sway in such a way that these people have then come to where they can finally access the gospel. We did not go to their countries, but they have come to us. Of the 10,000 distinct people groups in the world today, their own culture, their own languages, there are 4,105 unreached. Doesn't that startle you? It's growing up, I had no interest in being a missionary. It was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in the inner cities of San Francisco. When God got my heart, I wanted to do something for him, and that's where I was headed. But when I found out that even though it looked like the church was everywhere for Mission Spotlight, I found out about these unreached people groups. And I figured, you know what? Jesus said he's not coming back until that sign is fulfilled. So despite all the other signs that we see that point to Jesus soon coming, we're still waiting on this one. But here's the beauty of it. God has taken those individuals, which can include about 3 billion people, and he's sent them to us. This is a young lady from Myanmar. She was from the Golden Neck tribe that you just saw here. Her mother decided she didn't want her daughter to be made fun of, so she decided not to put the rings on her neck and to send her to a special school. It happened to be a Seventh-day Adventist school, and now she is planting the church, planting a church in her grandmother's village. That's the exciting thing that can happen not just overseas, but right here as we reach out to refugees. So consider Bhutan, tiny little country, less than 1 million people, but it has 73 unreached people groups. Go up one hill and they speak the certain language, come down the other hill and they speak another. And so how do you get in a country like that? It's been closed for many, many years. Kingdom of Buddhism, and holy hills that you can't climb that are gorgeous and just unique, distinct people.
Bhutan, you can't say a word about it.
It's illegal to do any evangelism, extremely expensive even to go there as a tourist. 86% Buddhist. Well, about 10 years ago, about 20 years ago, there was an ethnic cleansing of the country in which primarily Hindus and Christians were targeted and sent out. Nepali-speaking Bhutanese who lived there for 2 or so generations. They fled into India and into Nepal, and huge refugee camps were set up. Then over time, slowly over the last 10 years, about 60,000 of those, or 60 to 70,000 came to the United States. And now here they are. I walked into a Target, saw a tall, big-boned man, shaved head, orange robe, and I thought, I wonder if he's from Bhutan. I'd always been praying for Bhutan, not able to visit there. And sure enough, that's where he was from. Think of Somalia, second most dangerous country in the world for Christians, right after North Korea. You just, hard to survive.
The church lost out. They could have evangelized Somalia in the 50s because it was an Italian colony. When I was over there was no problems, foreigners dancing to girls. And a lot of Muslim countries, those girls would have been stoned.
There are many opportunities, but let's not miss out on the one that God has given us now. So here we have Somalia, primarily Muslim, very, very militant about that, and many other difficulties and poverty. But now there are 85,700 Somalis living in the United States. They've been able to come places like Minneapolis, Minnesota, but also here. They have come here as well. There are, I don't remember the exact numbers, but there are several thousand Somalis living here in Phoenix. Their first chance to be able to choose Jesus with much, much less chance of losing their life. Think about the 1.2 billion unreached in India. This is the largest place for the unreached. And in fact, there are 2013 distinct people groups. That just boggles my mind. How is the gospel going to get finished among them? But again, God has done it. We have over 2 million Hindus living in the United States. And right here in Houston, right here in Phoenix, we have about 7,000 Hindi and 2,600 Gujarati and other ethnic groups from that background. So in this, we can see God's hands. And I love this quote from Evangelism, page 570, where Ellen White seen this over 100 years ago with Chinese immigrants, Irish immigrants, different ones. She said, we should be able to see in the multiplying opportunities to reach many foreigners in America a divinely appointed means of rapidly extending the third angel's message into all the nations of earth. Did you catch those words? I want it to come soon, don't you? To see Jesus actually appear and have all this suffering finally end, that's our heart's desire. And she lists this as a divinely appointed means of rapidly getting it done. God in his providence has brought men to our very doors and thrust them, as it were, into our arms, that they might learn the truth and be qualified to do a work we could not do in getting the light before men of other tongues. Yes?
You know, I hear you talking. I like languages. And I speak some Tagalog, Philippine, speak some Japanese, and Spanish.
Wow.
But if I don't get into the ears to hear it much more, it begins to lose its content. So I'm praying to Lord, you give me the language that you want me to speak and the people you want me to contact.
Amen.
I will speak it because you've given it to my mind to the process.
That's an amazing thing that you said. Do we actually believe that God will give the gift of tongues again?
Yes.
I mean, there's Christians out there praying constantly for the false gift of tongues. Are we praying for the gift of tongues? That we might be able to speak to people?
10, 15 languages. I don't care.
Sometimes the Lord makes us work hard. I've worked hard to learn Thai, to learn Cambodian. I can preach it and share it, but it's not like the local people can. So, the Lord may not need you to speak Arabic, but He may lead you to an Afghani or an Iranian, or more likely an Iraqi, who does speak it fluently but speaks English, and you can talk with him. We went out on Sunday a couple weeks ago in Houston to help the Spanish church that had been flooded. And somebody had just brought a huge trailer full of stuff for us to share. So we took it down to the church and said, who do you know that's in need? He said, well, I think the best is to go to this one street where people come looking for jobs and just lay it out there. We did, and it was mainly Spanish-speaking people who came in that area. But after a while, I saw a Muslim family approaching, and I talked with them, and they came over. Turns out they were from Afghanistan. He'd worked with the U.S. military. He could speak English well, but they had just arrived. Especially his wife had just come. She couldn't speak English at all. So we made a friendship and found out they were from a whole apartment complex with over 250 Afghani families. This is the kind of mission opportunity that many dreamed with. I wish I could go overseas, but my wife doesn't want to go. Or I need to take care of my parents. Or I'm scared of snakes. Well, here they are in the concrete jungle waiting for us to reach out and touch them. So it's more than 74,000 refugees here in Phoenix that have come. Do you know if the number is higher than that? Lauren, you work with the people around here. That's what I was able to come across, with 1 in 4 residents in Phoenix speaking another language. I'm sure much of that is Spanish, but beyond that, there are people to befriend and to get to know that come from different places. Where are they from? Primarily here in Phoenix, from Syria. It's a high number. I'm talking about recently. I'm not talking about the overall time, but in the last year, where have they especially come from? That would be Syria, then also from Iraq, from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the different difficulties that have been happening there, from Burma. We continue to see them pour in. Many of those are Christian, so we have more quickly had Karen and Chin refugee church groups. It's been so exciting to see the church rise to this challenge. We have now over 50 groups like the one that you attended today. Were they speaking Burmese or Karen?
There were 6 language groups into one.
Wow.
The translator spoke in Burmese.
Okay, so Burmese is the shared language of the country, but not many Burmese Buddhists have actually become Seventh-day Adventists. That's the majority people group. And so these people who may be more from the Christian tribe backgrounds, they have that ability now to reach across those lines as the Lord works in their behalf. And as I mentioned, from Bhutan. Bosnia too. I failed to mention Bosnia, an Islamic group that comes from more the area of Asia, Europe, through there. So this just gives you a list of the numbers who have come in the last year. You can see not huge numbers, but they're adding up. And those are real people that may be the Paul for their people. When Stephen was getting stoned and the clothes were laid at Paul's feet, how would he have possibly thought that this terrorist would become a mighty evangelist for God? But he did. So maybe those 2 from North Korea can be used by God in a mighty way for the country that's the most dangerous for Christians today. It's not just refugees. I'm emphasizing that in this time because that's what was asked. But it's people like the Thais, whose country have been so peaceful for the last 80 years or so. 67 million unreached. My heart is so much with that country. And 80,000 Thai live in Southern California. If you go around here and you enjoy Thai food, well, there's about 37 just in this metro area. They're people, for the most part, who are Buddhist, who do not know Jesus and who are in need of Him. As this city grows, there will be about 16 million visitors that just pass through. So if you meet a tourist, don't think, oh, I'll probably never see him again. Think, this is God's opportunity for another seed to be planted. And one of the best ways you can do in just a moment like that, and I have a slide coming on this, but it just fits here, is to use this card. I handed you one as you came in. There's a bunch more in the back there. And this has over 150 languages at it. So it's just a portal to what the church already has. We have a lot of people here from Adventist World Radio. And they have done an amazing work to find people who can speak the gospel and the Seventh-day Adventist message. But this one links to also the Jesus video, so that people can hear the story. Watch are you acquainted with the Jesus video? Some of you have seen that. This is the one that has been most translated around the world. It's very accurate. It's done according to the Gospel of Luke, and so actually let me take a moment to show you this to you on the computer. I really believe this is God's end time strategy, just like He did at Pentecost, where the Bible says there were dwelling in Jerusalem Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven. There they were waiting. And in that moment, the Holy Spirit was poured out, and they could say, how is it that we hear each in our own language in which we were born? So many people say, well, why don't they just learn English? Well, if you've learned a language, it's tough. And yes, they need to, and many of them desperately want to. But still, even when you've learned another language, it is your heart language that you most want to hear a new message in, that you need to hear the gospel. And that's why we need to find ways. Yes?
Our last sermon in Prescott, we are in exact parallel to the day of Pentecost. And if we'll work the way we're supposed to home, with all these new people coming here, we're going to have our Pentecost now. It's not something we pray for in the future.
Amen. When you pray for the Holy Spirit to bring revival and reformation to God's church, pray also with this in mind, because it will happen. As God gives us a love for the one of the 100 sheep that is out in danger, that's far away from the shepherd and from the fold, people will take this up. Pray for laborers for the harvest, that God will place it upon many people's hearts. So this is the website. What they'll first see when they come to it is a map there. If they click on the section that comes up, then they'll come to Asia. And then maybe you've met up with a Cambodian at a donut shop, which I often do. I will walk into a donut shop because I know that many of them are run by Cambodians. And then you can look at it. If you're going to be actually opening and showing it, then you can find it. Like here, it's all in their language. Once it comes to that page, then it's right there. So here's an amazing facts video, final events, that's been translated into Cambodian, and they can easily access it and be able to. Sarapan, tengok kania, you'll take. You won't understand, but you could still watch it with them, and then in their English, they could find out more. So there's Adventist World Radio, there are Bible studies, there's Sabbath school lessons is there, various things that can be found in those languages we place there. And if you know something, like I just said to my brother here who speaks Oromo, and how do you say it? Arhamic? How do you? Amharic and Oromo from Ethiopia. If something is not there, then help us know and we can add so that they can see.
These cards, people like Souls West, they go out and they meet.
Yes, can help us connected with people who are out there doing literature, evangelism, door-to-door work, different things. Am I stepped out of the area, or has it still got me in the? Okay, all right. Yeah, yes, the Jesus video is there, and Adventist World Radio, those are the two biggest ones, plus Voice of Prophecy, which has a lot of Bible studies, the Discover Bible School, 3ABN, Hope Channel. Hope Channel is in several languages, and so wherever we can connect it. And I am so amazed when I meet people and I make a friendship, the first thing I usually say to them is I usually say, do you speak another, not the first thing, but after I've been friendly and I want to go a little farther, to somebody in the gas station, I may say, do you speak another language besides English? And I remember when I'd run in, it was snowing in Michigan, just out there in Indiana, and I ran in to pay for the gas and was in a hurry to go somewhere, and I saw a man sitting there with a turban on his head. And I thought, okay, Lord, I can't pass by without saying hi. And I just said hi, and I asked him, do you speak another language besides English? And he said, yes. He said, I speak 5. Tamil, Gujarati, Hindi, Punjabi, and another one you wouldn't recognize. And I smiled and said, wow, that's amazing. And then I paid for my gas, and I said, I have a website that has many languages on it, and I'm sure at least one of those that you speak is on here. And I gave him the card. And I don't know what will happen with it, but just like with any pamphlet, there's the potential of somebody connecting with Jesus Christ because they have had the seed placed in their hand. So I encourage you to take a stack. You can always order more. You can get your pastor doing it, put the church's phone number on the back, get the church doing it. Be a mobilizer to help others do that. Because I'm with the computer here now with the website, I want to take you to another piece of how you can find out where people are. Some of you will see them easily in stores or at your workplaces or at universities. But what about when you don't know who they are or where they are or who is around? There are a couple good websites that I want to share with you, and I'm going to go down while this goes here. The only reason I'm standing up there is they told me to. So the main website that has our ministry and ideas for how to reach out is called Reach the World Next Door. And Reach the World Next Door is just such a visual for me that God has brought the world right to us. So at that place, there's ideas for how to care tangibly for refugees, how to share the gospel in 150 languages is the card we just talked about. Then there's befriending international students. Such a huge open door for you to touch the lives of people who either are the leaders of their country or who probably will be in the future, because they're sent to learn. The training that we do, there is a kit that you can do with your church that will help people learn how to reach out cross-culturally. It has assignments where they go out into the community. That can be ordered there. And then how to witness to other religions. If we have time today, we're going to talk about a 4-step method to share with people of almost any background. And look forward to talking about that with you briefly, but you can find out more here. I do a weekly podcast that gives a little picture into what God is doing somewhere in the world cross-culturally. And then the one I wanted to talk with you about here is Discover the Unreached Near You. When we look to find them, we tend to see the people who are like us, right? And if it's, our church may be very one culture oriented, or it may be like our wonderful church we were at today, Pastor Joel. You have mainly one language or maybe 2 languages that are together who can share easily. At the Burmese group, you had 5. So those are a little more diverse. But there are people always outside our vision. So even if your church is multicultural and you're around with people of lots of cultures, they probably all speak English fairly well. But to think and to know who else is near us is important. So there's a website here listed called peoplegroups.info. Peoplegroups.info. At peoplegroups.info, a group of Christians have worked hard to help us know who are in the metro areas. So that's a place that you can go just to know who's in Phoenix, or if you're from somewhere else, then you can find out. It looks like it's loading slowly here. If it doesn't, that's okay. But you can go to the metro area there and find out who is in Phoenix and where they come from. You could do that. It depends. They haven't done every city in America. But here's how you can find out about refugees in Prescott. There's another place called the Refugee Processing Center. And this is the United States government clear description of who have come as refugees in the last 20 years. But you can narrow it down to who's come in the last year and who has come to my specific town or city.
Refugee processing.
It's the Refugee Processing Center. I'm not going to go through it all with you. The directions are there at the Reach the World Next Door site, which you have in your prayer guide. But you can look it up. It takes a little bit of learning to do, but not much. And then you're able to know. Because you really have, as we'll talk a little more, you really only have about 5 months for the most vulnerable time of their lives to become that friend that they will look to, that they would want to know more about your religion, your background, what God has done for you. And so that's why it's nice to know who is coming. What's that? What I mean is, when I went to another country, I'm just trying to find my way. How do I get to the market? How do I find the bathroom? How do I say a few words to get along? And so you bond with whoever is your friend in that first part. You really connect. After that, you have your friends. For them here, they have 3 months of government assistance before they're basically on their own and trying to survive. So that's a time when they especially need friendship. There's that peoplegroups.info, or you can go to the place there where it says Metro Area List, and then you can look up Phoenix, click on Phoenix, and come. You see some of the statistics I mentioned earlier. Come down here and see the population base, 25,000 Navajo, a fairly unreached people group as well. The Vietnamese, 18,000, Chinese, 11,000, Arab Iraqis, 6,800, and on it goes. So one other place back here that I've just discovered is the Mapping Center. If you are a pastor of a church or a member of a church and you really want to help know who's within a mile radius, you can get your church, that one you have to purchase. It cost us a bit, but with Houston, we wanted to know where people are. So that one actually, you can find out what ethnicity the person is in each house that's there. So that's kind of scary, isn't it? That somebody out there knows that much about who's living where. Yes?
Now, I'm looking at your computer. Do they sell that information in a package like that?
The Mapping Center does. The one that I have, which is right there. The Mapping Center, it's a Christian group again, who has gone to all this work to do that effort and has made it available, but they make their livelihood doing it that way. This is the kind of thing advertisers use. If you're Vietnamese and you've got a Vietnamese product, you know who and where the Vietnamese are in the United States, because that's your business. So they have put it together in a way that's so helpful. Any questions about that as I go back to this? I'm going to go back up here. He seemed to think this was the better place. So.
It's interesting. Our pastor, when we want to find out who's in our city, and this would be a good tool.
It's very special to be that strategic about those who really have no voice in our church boards, in our conferences. They are the people who are never going to say, "Would somebody please come reach me?" They have to have advocates that will reach out and care. So some simple things as far as how do we then begin to get involved? What can we do? I mentioned already the Cambodian places. Just to watch for opportunities and to take interest in people and to ask, where did you come from originally? Is another way I like to ask it, because it communicates the warmth of, where are you from? Where do you come from? No, where did you come from originally? I'm interested in you. I want to know about your background. What other language do you speak besides English? And there's a bunch of questions we've added on the website that can help you if you're not sure what are you going to say to follow up. For some of you, this just comes naturally too, but for some of us, we have to think a little bit. But then to be able to follow up, one conversation and maybe give them the card, you want to go beyond that. You want to be able to connect again. And so like with the Afghani man that I met, that I mentioned to you that I had talked with, we said, okay, we're about to finish up and go back for lunch. We still have this clothes left that nobody's, not too many people are coming. Do you think the Afghanis back at your apartment complex would like it? Oh, yes, he said, if you brought that over there, it would be gone in a few minutes. So we followed him over. We laid it out there, talked with him. And before he left, I said, could I give you my contact? And I have yours in case there's a need that comes up that we could help with. And he did. And then I said, would it be okay if we have some students who are learning about other cultures. Could we come and just take time to ask you questions like, what was it like to live in Afghanistan? What's it like to grow up Muslim? What's it like to move here? And he said, sure, I'd be happy to. So that's our plan. So just finding a way. It could be that you'd say to them, I love Thai food. I'd love to, maybe let me start over. You might say to a Vietnamese, I've never eaten Vietnamese food before. I'd love to try it, but I'm vegetarian and I don't know how to pick. Could I take you out to eat and you tell me what the different foods are so I can try it? Yeah, sure, free meal, that sounds good. And this person's interested in me, let's do it. Or you might invite them to your own home. My wife ran into this Cambodian couple that's there on the left with their little girl at Lowe's. She was shopping, she saw them, she thought, maybe they're Cambodian. She asked. And the lady said, yes, we're Cambodian, just kind of hesitant. And my wife said, Chumrip sir, Soksabaite, Kinyom Ni Ye Piasa Kamai Ba. And the lady just lunged towards her and hugged her.
Would you repeat the first few words you just said?
Chumrip sur.
Jumrip sur.
Chumrip sur.
Jumrip sur.
Yeah, it's a little tough.
I always find myself like wanting to talk to people from countries that I've worked in, lived in. And on Chinese, if I start looking at a Chinese face, start talking, I can remember some Chinese, where I could not do it with any other.
It's so neat when you have a connection of some sort with it. If you don't, that's okay too. I've gone to writing down how to say thank you in the language. Just ask them, how do you say thank you? Sheshe. How do you say thank you? Prego. Those different things. And I have noticed, my Tagalog, Lauren, is one word. It's salamat po. But I walk through immigration and see somebody and I can tell a little bit of that, that beautiful touch of accent, which is so clear, but I can tell it's from the Philippines. And I will say salamat po, and just breaks out in a big smile, because they know you care something about their culture, which is them. So anyway, she invited them to our house for lunch. Now don't try to fix their ethnic food for them. She did, and they politely ate it, but we could tell it didn't taste like they were used to. Instead, fix whatever you want to. But then they invited us to their house. My father's here. We were visiting. And we've become very close friends. And then we watched for a need. What's the need of this family? They were doing well, starting a new donut factory, very busy. We were busy, so we couldn't help each other much. But they were looking for somebody to watch their little girl. They get up at 2:30 in the morning to fix donuts. And she's dragged off to the donut place with them. So we started checking. My wife tried her best. We interviewed 3 different people. All 3 of them fell through. We didn't know what to do, but because of the prayers and the persistence of my wife Julie, we located a young lady in another state who was willing to move out there and live with them and receive the small stipend because she saw the vision of reaching out to them. So now Tabitha is in this home, caring for that little girl, and we're continuing to be in contact. How much does Jesus really care about this? How interested is he? When we moved back from Thailand, just before we left, a young lady named Supin said to us, I want you to say hi to my sister when you get to America. She's immigrated there. And we thought, well, that's great. We'd love to follow up because she's from the Mian tribe. Supin is from the Mian tribe, which AFM sent missionaries to years ago, about 20 years ago. 2 missionary families worked hard to learn their language so that they could share the gospel, the Seventh-day Adventist message for the first time. Well, finally a family came to Christ, and Supin was part of that family, and so was her sister. So we said to Supin, okay, well, give us her address. Where does she live? She said, well, I don't know. But when you see her, please tell her hi for me. From a little village, had no concept. And so we laughed and moved to America. Well, God was smiling. And when my daughter's boyfriend came to visit, she said, I want to take him out to Thai food. And so let's go. And we thought, well, we don't know where to go. It's too expensive and it doesn't taste as good here in America. But we headed down the hill and we came to the first place. And we walked in the door. And I'll never forget, I heard this young lady say, Ajahn Sakat, Teacher Scott, in Thai. And I looked, confused. She said, P. Supin, Supin's my sister. And we just hugged her and just began to cry. God was trying to reach out to her because she was backslidden. She was working on Sabbath. And she had married an animist of the same tribe. But he quickly told me, I'm not a Christian. My father's an animist, and I'm not going to become a Christian. Not while he's alive, anyway. But he loved the stories we shared, and we got to know their family. And he ended up in prison because his sister wanted him to help her grow marijuana. And at that time, it was not legal over there to be doing anything like that. And he's the one that it fell on. And he ended up in prison for 2 years. While there, I sent him a Bible and a dictionary, and he went through the entire Bible. God had his plan. God has his deep desire to reach these people. And like Philip and the Ethiopian treasure, God will put you together with somebody to be able to reach out to them. So find an easy follow-up, some way that you can stay connected, and don't be afraid. Just ask questions. Get acquainted. Reach out to them. There's my wife's stepmother at the donut shop. Might be something thrown in that's kind of fun too, that blesses you back, although I'm not sure the donuts will bless you if you eat too many. There's the My Language, My Life card that I mentioned, and children can get involved as well. And we, just there's something about receiving a website that's more welcoming than even a pamphlet or a book, because it's intriguing. What could it be? What am I going to find there? And so we'll come back to this later about sharing your story and praying for them or praying with them. But these are ways that we can begin to share the gospel. I love this text, Leviticus 19, verse 34. Love the refugees as you love yourselves. Jesus reminded the Israelites, you were once there. You were under a hard taskmaster. You had to flee for your lives. You've gone through this. You understand. Befriend those who come. And we had a wonderful time today, Pastor Joel, preaching together and recognizing Jesus understands everything a refugee has gone through. We went through each piece, how he chose to leave heaven, came and was born in a difficult setting, was taken by his mother and father in haste to avoid being killed by Herod, were strangers in a foreign land. What was it like for them? How despised were they there in Egypt? I don't know. But then coming back and still not feeling it was safe to return. So we're displaced persons there into Nazareth. On Jesus went through the rejection, the betrayal, the beating, the shaming, all kinds of things that people who've been through the refugee situation can relate to, and we can come close to them and care and share. So how would we go about this? If you wanted to take your church and see something amazing happen, you could simply contact a number I'm going to give you, and they will train you how to welcome them when they first arrive. This has to be one of the most exciting mission opportunities that our children and our church members could become a part of. You can Google, this is what I did yesterday to find out who you have here. I just put in Refugee Resettlement Phoenix. And up came 4 different agencies. And one of them was, I can't remember, I called one first and didn't get an answer, so I called another. And I got the Lutheran World Service organization. Talked with Adele Irwin. She was so friendly, so nice, so interested in what we were doing this weekend. She said, please, can you tell me more about the Pathways to Health program so we can send refugees to get that health care on that time? She went on to tell me, so I said to her, what do you need? Do you need volunteers? I know that with the Trump administration right now, things are quieter and not as many refugees coming in. She said, yes, we do still need volunteers. There are many things that they can do. Right now, they have a drive in which they are raising funds or asking people to bring in gift cards for Christmas gifts in, 3 months from now. They said, a lot of times people bring in toys, and that's wonderful. But they're teenagers who don't want a stuffed animal. We want to have something special to give them, like a gift card for a store. She said, beyond that, we need advocates who will pull together a group of people, and we'll come in and teach them what the needs are and how to be involved. But most importantly, they need individuals, families, a group from a church who will welcome a refugee or a family and walk them through things for the first 6 months. Now, that doesn't mean you're with them day in and day out. It might mean an hour a week. It might be a couple hours on a Sunday. But it means being able to stock their kitchen before they arrive so they have some food and they don't know, wondering what on earth to do or where to go. Maybe even get something that's, kind of like the food they're used to be able to walk them through their apartment, which is open to them for those first 3 months, and show them how to use things. People come from different settings. I remember watching a video when I was young of a Cambodian family who's come to America, and there's the girl trying to figure out how to use that slippery toilet, trying to stand on it, the squat pots that you stand on to go to the bathroom. This one didn't work so well that way. Things that you just don't think of, that they will train you how to welcome them, how to bring them there. So there's her email address and her phone number. If you want to write that down and help your church, or you can just start from scratch as I did, but I know she's interested. I have an email from her. She sent 5 minutes after we got off the phone saying, let me know if there's something we can do to partner in this kind of ministry. You don't need to be a Lutheran. You don't have to become a Lutheran, and the people who come in, they don't mind whatever church they go to. They're a Christian organization. Catholics have a charity that's similar. At times, they're more protective and more careful about who's helping them welcome people. But there are many organizations, secular and religious, that are happy for anybody to care for the people, and if the door opens up, to then be able to reach out and invite them to your church to study the Bible in their home. Many of these are Muslims, and so they're probably not going to come to church, but you can easily study in their homes with them. I believe they'll be posting some of these things, so you can listen into the other one about the 1040 window and get more information at our site about how to reach out to Muslims.
I'll ask them if they want me to come teach them how to cook healthy food.
That's a huge thing. We have just begun to think about what we're going to do next for the Cambodian community that we helped there south of Houston. And I asked the lady, the church member, who has relatives in that area. She's Spanish speaking. She's not Cambodian. I said, "What do you think the health needs are?" She said, "Well, I keep hearing them talk about high blood pressure and diabetes. So, I'm going to find out from Randy Vivens, the seminar that's coming up here, I think tomorrow, about that program that they have. And we'll take it there because they need it. And that will be a wonderful next opportunity to minister to them." I think it's important to stop for a moment and to recognize that we are caring for people at a very vulnerable time, and that we must not use that for our own purposes of wanting to baptize somebody and to grow our church. Jesus loved people who then didn't follow him. He challenged them, he encouraged them to take that stand, but he was happy to feed the 5,000 regardless of what they did with their energy from having eaten his bread. And we must have that love to help people just because it's right, just because we should. So how do we do that? Well, of course, we want them to know Jesus too. We want them to have eternal life. This life is not enough to be well-fed and well-educated. But being able to tell somebody, we've been friends, but as a friend, I can't help but share the things that are most exciting to me. But I want your permission to. I want to share with you about Jesus. Would that be okay? Or maybe even as they're showing interest, to be able to say to them, I want you to know you don't have to come to church with me just because I've helped you. Really, I am just fine if you say no. Of course I want to share it with you, but you need to know that my friendship with you is not tied for you following my religion. That gives people the freedom. They may have even come from a country where they were forced to follow in certain ways. And your being that expressive in your freedom to them can help them to want to learn and grow. We've talked about visiting their homes. Sharing a little gift is an important thing in many cultures. In Cambodia or Thai, you just don't go to someone's home for a visit without a little thing of fruits or something to show your interest. In other cultures, it's completely the other way. They will feed you and give you water and everything you could possibly want and more, and they don't expect you to bring anything when you visit. So you can learn those things by asking and find out. The idea of reaching out to international students, even though we're talking about refugees, you can host one in your home. Students, they have interchange programs where you can have somebody come and stay with you for a year. This family, or my church members in Hayward, California, they chose to do this with Japanese young people, with Japanese men. One of them was very uninterested. They would have family worships, invite him, no thanks. They would try to interact with him. He didn't believe it at all. He would argue with them and just was kind of obnoxious. They may have been kind of glad to see him go. But another year, there was a young man who truly was interested. And as the year progressed, he asked for Bible studies and finally was baptized and has become a Seventh-day Adventist minister, reaching out to Japanese who come to the Bay Area of California. That young man who was ornery, he later visited them and apologized. And so who knows what God has done with those seeds planted. But these are other open doors. Let me share this one story before we go on. I travel a little bit to share some like this, try to focus in one spot. But I wanted to see what God was doing in St. Paul, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because there's so many Somali there, so many Burmese, people that come from Burma, and so my son and I traveled over there, and we hurried to get there in time. We had a meeting at Friday night, and we wanted to visit with 3 Somalis that we had heard were learning about Seventh-day Adventist truth and about Jesus. When we got there, they were happy to share, but they said, please don't video. Even here in America, we are at risk for having become Christians. So this is the story Frances, which is not her real name, shared with me. She said when she was a young girl, you heard the story this morning. You can share it. When she was a young girl, her country was falling apart with war. I don't know if you remember how Somalia had about 1 million people that needed help just to eat, to stay alive. She watched her father be killed. She watched her brother and cousin be killed. And finally her mother took her and said, we have to get out of here. And they fled across the country, came to the border, not the border, they came to the ocean. You know how Somalia pokes out there to the east. And they got a boat. It was not a good boat. No engine, just a sail. But it was their only chance. Paid for it. Took some food and water, and somewhere out on the ocean, the wind stopped. They ran out of water and food, and it did not look good. But then the wind came and blew them to the shores of Kenya, and they were welcomed into a refugee camp. Later, Frances went down to wash her clothes. She almost got bit by a cobra. She escaped that and finally got to the United States and began to study, began to learn to be a nurse and then to be a teacher. Very connected with her Islamic faith. She would go and teach the Quran to small children, travel over on pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia with her mother. But a friend at the university kept reaching out to her. She loved to play basketball and they would play together. He introduced her to his wife. They were just good friends. And he invited her to church. And she refused, didn't want to go, says, I'm a Muslim. And finally she went and didn't like it a bit. Couldn't wait to get out of there. It was a Pentecostal, loud, noisy thing. It just felt totally different from the mosque. And so he kept trying. Finally he gave her a Bible. And she said, I don't read a Bible. I'm a Muslim. He said, well, the Quran says you should read the Gospels and the prophets, and, just take it. And she did, and it sat on her desk for a long time. And finally she opened it and began to read in the Gospel of John about how God is love. So she was confused. She was struggling to know, who is Jesus? Who is this God of love? In the Quran it speaks of God as the merciful one. But the picture is not like we have. It does not have the fullness of the revelation we've been given in Jesus. And when Jesus said, look, if you want to know the Father, it is how I am. And so one night, I don't know if it was in a dream, a vision, or if she just truly heard an audible voice, and she heard someone say, come follow me. She said, who are you? And the voice said, I am the one who sent the wind. I am the one who protected you from that cobra. I'm the one that brought you to America. I'm the one who sent you this young man to teach you about me. I am Jesus. Come, follow me. And so she has. And I saw that beautiful beaming smile. And I'm thrilled to know that some of those in that group of Somalis are now studying the Seventh-day Adventist belief, and I believe 2 of them have been baptized. It's not the kind of thing that they want broadcasted, but that is the beautiful work that God can do through somebody who is willing to play basketball and to be a friend. You can invite them for the holidays, teach them about Jesus through the story of Christmas. There are ways to reach out and care in many ways. Our schools in different states, like Iowa and Missouri Conference, are just booming because they've opened the doors to the refugees. They raise money from the church members to put them into school. And now those young people who are so eager to study are influencing the other children who maybe didn't care so much before they came around. Just fun to see Pa'amu next to Joshua on the walls. The joy is seeing the young people come to Christ and be baptized. This can happen here in Phoenix with all of your wonderful schools. We've already talked about fostering refugee children, right? Yes. I've done it twice today, so I was thinking about that. And whole churches like Paradise Valley in San Diego have just come alive with the mission and have tons of food going through them to help these people, and have started different ethnic churches right there. They opened up their space for gardens, community gardens, and then this is the man who's led the church there. He's written a book about their experience and has shared his heart. They need a place to meet. It's not easy, is it? Meeting in the gymnasium, Pastor Joel?
Not easy.
They went from the multi-purpose room, which became classrooms, to in the gymnasium. There's no place for the children for Sabbath school, in their own languages anyway, and they're looking for a place to rent. But there's not a lot of money in the jobs that are first available when the refugees arrive. You think about it, even if you're a medical doctor back in Afghanistan, what good is that here? Unless you go through and take your boards and all of the effort. So we have pastors and doctors pulling feathers off of chickens in Kentucky, or Tennessee, places I've gone and seen this kind of a thing. But their hearts are with Jesus, and the investment of our time and our resources can make a huge difference. Spanish churches opening up their fellowship hall to a Korean group in Arkansas. And I just was thrilled to see those young people, more alive than most young people I meet. And I said to them, you may end up evangelizing my grandchildren someday, if time should last. Some churches giving multiple births to new ethnic groups. Most importantly, watching for that ethnic leader that you can empower, who can be the strength. Now, they were kind to let me speak today and translate, but it was so much more powerful as Pastor Joel preached in their language. And he's there every week without having to be translated. God is able to use it. Think of Jimmy Sway, who God has used to help encourage the Korean groups across the country till we have 50 different groups. So much there that we can think of. We simply need to be asking, who's missing from your house of prayer? Who is in your community that's not in your church? And ask the Lord to open it up. Research our community. Those are the websites that we talked about that are all there at reachtheworldnextdoor.com. And then to organize intercession for the unreached. I gave you as you came in the praying for the world next door. You may want to create one for Arizona. We'd be happy to partner with you and have it to awaken the churches across this city to the opportunities that are there. If you don't mind, just go to Reach the World Next Door map, and you can find them right there. And I think I'm going to jump. Is it 10 to 5? Is that the time? Okay, so we have just about 10 minutes left. I want to look at those 4 steps with you that I promised, and I will skip past some of these things. Let me just switch the PowerPoint. And if you want the not condensed too fast version, then you can go on the website there, and it talks about the 4-step method. But I want to encourage you to have confidence as you go beyond just the friendship and the helping to spiritual conversations. Anyway, it starts with listening. You don't have to know anything about Buddhism to talk to a Buddhist monk. You don't need to be afraid that the Muslim is going to nail you with some question about the nature of Christ or the corruption of the Bible. You can find answers to those kind of things and learn so that you can answer when that comes up. But the vast majority in a friendship context are not going to be in a conflicting sort of situation. So starting by listening, asking the normal questions we would ask in friendship evangelism. And tell me about your family. Tell me about the work you do. Tell me what it was like to leave your country and come here. Going through those different ordinary things. But as you do that, people begin to share their heart. They're worried about their teenager who's getting involved maybe in drugs or a gang. You learn those different things. But you can also ask about their values, their religion. And I like to do it with a question that says, tell me about how you grew up. Were your parents of a specific religion? Then they can talk about their upbringing rather than their own. If you just say, well, what religion are you? Well, I'm Buddhist, and then the conversation's there, finished. But if you're asking about, and then you can say, so what do you appreciate about that? Then they can tell you the values that they're still holding on to. And as you listen to those values, you'll find what you hold in common, which takes us to the second step. As I mentioned, I'm skipping some things with you here. Then you can affirm similarities. So point number 2 is to affirm what you hold in common. We often will hear people, whenever I'm trying to have a spiritual conversation in Thailand, almost every time they will say, all religions are the same. Buddhism, Christian, we're all alike. And what they're basically saying is, let's not get in an argument. I want to get along with you. And most people are like that. So when we can affirm our similarities and come close, it's beautiful. And we have them, don't we? Of course we know what we share in common with Jewish people. With Muslims, they're always amazed to find out that we don't eat pork or drink alcohol. It's just like, well, that's what Christians do. There are points that draw us together with these different groups. And even in the Hindu and the Jewish areas, which you may think, well, what do I hold in common with them? There are many things that we hold in common. And we are encouraged to speak about points of doctrine on which we can agree, to let them see that you are a conscientious person. Thus you will gain their confidence, and there will be time enough for doctrines. Gospel Workers, page 119 to 120. So by affirming those areas, asking how can we press together, you are actually helping them see that your brand of Christianity, or whatever Seventh-day Adventism is that they're wondering about, is something they could value. Because right now they may be thinking very low of Christianity compared to their own religion. And they need to hear about it through things that are in common. I remember talking with a Buddhist monk on the airplane, and he spent his time trying to convert me for a while. He wanted to make sure I knew that happiness really didn't come from being rich, which he assumed I was. He wanted then to know that I couldn't find happiness in women. And I said, well, I'm married to one lady for 25 years. He said, but even that, you will lose her someday. And so you can't, he was just going through all these different Buddhist things, and I kept affirming those areas that I agreed with him and held in common. And then he just opened wide for me to be able to share, because now he valued who I was and what mattered to me. The third step is to share about differences through stories. You don't want to just listen and say things that are similar. We have so much to share. We have the truth about the living God and what his character is really like. We have salvation that is through faith alone, which none of the other religions teach. They teach it through works, through their own efforts, maybe even through hundreds of lives. So when we want to share, how do we do it? And the best way is through stories. Those stories may be our Bible stories, or they may be personal stories. I love this quote. It says, "Our confession of his faithfulness is heaven's chosen agency for revealing Christ to the world. We are to acknowledge his grace as made known through the holy men of old, but that which will be most effectual is the testimony of our own experience. We are witnesses for God as we reveal in ourselves the working of a power that is divine. Every individual has a life distinct from all others, and an experience differing essentially from theirs. God desires that our praise shall ascend to him, marked by our own individuality. These precious acknowledgments to the praise of the glory of his grace, when supported by a Christ-like life, have an irresistible power that works for the salvation of souls." That's from the Desire of Ages, page 347. And I think it's just so amazing. Don't you want to be irresistible in your witness? It's 347. That testimony of just sharing how God has answered your prayer. It doesn't have to be some big conversion story. It may just be how God has helped your marriage, or how he has helped your teenager, or whatever else. God is able to do beautiful things through it. And lastly, invite them to experience. They've heard a good story. You've shared how God has helped heal a relationship. Don't leave it there. They've just shared with you about their broken relationship. Invite them to try praying to God. Invite them to try reading the Bible, or a specific text that you give them. Invite them to a Sabbath experience with you. They may say, "Well, what's a Sabbath?" They may not even know who the Creator God is. But by bringing their family and joining you in the park or out in nature somewhere, and you seating and telling stories or lessons from nature, they can begin to comprehend what you're talking about when you say there's a Creator God who loves us and is interested. So letting them experience in some way, we're told in pamphlet 118, the secret of our success and power will be found in making direct, personal appeals to those who are interested, having unwavering reliance upon the Most High. So if you need a way to remember it, think of LASSI, L-A-S-I. Listen, affirm, share stories, invite to experience. Whether it's a LASSI, that's spelled L-A-S-I-E, or it's an L-A-S-S-I-E, or it's L-A-S-I. LASSI is actually a Pakistani unreached people group. Maybe some way that can stick in your mind, to listen carefully, affirm what's in common, share through stories, and then finally to invite them to experience. Any questions or comments as we conclude?
I was going to say, the Sabbath is a good day to invite Muslims, because they see that your religion is 24/7, not just a couple hours a week. They see when you're vegetarians, they think vegetarians are equivalent of a Indian Brahmin.
There are many things in our lifestyles. I believe God has uniquely and specifically positioned us with our doctrines, with our lifestyle, with our message of righteousness by faith, with our understanding of the three angels' messages, which I couldn't get into with you today, but there are some things online, to share with all the peoples of the world, just as the first angel's message says. It is for not just Catholics and Protestants. It is for every tongue, every tribe. How will it happen? Through the power of the Holy Spirit. Acts of the Apostles 22. After the descent of the Holy Spirit, the disciples were so filled with love for him and for those for whom he died, that hearts were melted by the words they spoke and the prayers they offered. They spoke in the power of the Spirit, and under the influence of that power, thousands were converted.
I'd like to just share a little bit.
Yes, Lauren, I just was thinking, I feel bad that I hadn't given you time to share. And if you want to connect with somebody who's been involved with refugee ministries day after day with his church, Lauren is the man to talk to. Get in touch. But yes, let me just say a prayer since we're at 5, and then I'd like you to share, and let's keep it running. But in case someone needs to go, Father, I just want to lift up each person in this room that they will take away something that will make a difference as they reach out. Please bless them and care for them and use them powerfully. Raise up other laborers for the harvest through them. And may your will be worked out in their lives as they live for your glory, that Jesus might come sooner. In Jesus' name, amen. If you do slip out, please, if you would like to receive the podcast and keep in touch, write your name and email address on the back of one of the cards or on a piece of paper so that I can keep in touch with you. Lauren, would you share a little bit here with us?
Yeah, I'll share this to you. Well, I've been teaching ESL to many different groups, minor tribes from Burma. And I've also covered some of Joel's people. I teach them Monday nights as well.
Really?
And I have helped many of them become U.S. citizens.
Amen.
Now, the problem with many of them are they're already Christians. And Christians can be a problem. Now, in what sense are they a problem? When they were processed in Thailand and Malaysia, before they came to the U.S., they became Christians. And because these people were the ones who fed them, coming back to the U.S., they looked for those churches. And they don't want to bite the hand that fed them. That is why of all the groups, religious groups that I'm serving, the Adventists are very small. Many of my students are either Catholics or Baptists. And some of them are Muslims, some of them are Buddhists, and some of them are open. I pray with them, they listen to prayers, and I teach them our songs. And they when I pray, they reflect on it. I let them follow me. So even the Muslims are praying our Adventist prayers. Well, the thing is that when it comes to, joining our church, it's kind of very challenging. It's very difficult because, as I said, you don't bite the hand that fed you. So it's hard. But my prayer is that someday, time is coming, right? Someday, when the Sabbath truths will be magnified, they will remember that at some point of their learning English at the center, they'll remember. I remember my teacher teaching me the verse, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." Because we not only teach them our songs, I not only teach them our prayers, I also teach them our Bible verses.
Praise God. Kyle?
Scott, thank you so much. Just want to make sure if those of you who aren't staying for the evening program, we're leaving some flyers for you to take back to your churches. We'll take those with you, as well as some posters. So
Excellent.
we of course invite you to stay for dinner at 5:30 and for the program, but if you're not, please feel free to take them.
Very good.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There's also plenty of the prayer guides and the My Language, My Life cards. If you want to take and share them with church members, you're welcome to. And I believe God is going to finish his work, and I would encourage you, the areas of prophecy are not known by many of these Christian groups. We have a set of 20 lessons that uses in a story form that covers Daniel and Revelation with Southeast Asian background, that you could get in touch with me and find those.
And one last note is that what endears them to us and us to them is that we have visited many homes.
Amen.
And when we visit them, they prepare dinner for us, and we stay there for about 2 to 3 hours. And it's very empowering because they felt like these are Christians and we are Buddhists being visited by a Christian. It's something to them because other people don't visit them. And so when the family is being visited, and I involve my family in visiting them, they felt so blessed because they're visited by someone. And some families have invited us, more than once. And so we continue to do this whenever there's an opportunity for visit. It's very, very important that we visit their homes. It's very powerful.
75% of Southeast Asian Chinese, any of the Asian background, have said, as they did a study, that they have never had an American friend. So people who've lived in America for ages, 40 to 50% of Muslims. So there's huge need just for friendship. God bless you all. It's good to meet you.